Welcome. I'm Jay Shear with Jay Shear Business Consulting. We build solid foundations for service-based businesses to grow and scale, and you've joined Business Minds Coffee Chat. Richard Branson said, "There are no quick wins in business. It takes years to become an overnight success." Well, on this episode, we're going to talk about the work it takes to become a success, the power of persistence, overcoming obstacles, how a book can change one's life, what can be learned from ice, and more. Our guest is a serial entrepreneur, an Emmy Award-winning producer, author, host of the TV series Success in Your City, podcaster, keynote speaker, inventor, business advisor, crowdfunding expert, and media guru. He's worked with high-profile clients like Jeff Hoffman, the billionaire founder of Priceline.com, Kevin Harrington, John Lee Dumas, X-Prize, and more. He's been featured in a number of prestigious media outlets, including USA Today, NBC News, and Inventor's Digest. Please welcome the founder of Accelerant Media Group and the voice and face behind Live to Grind, Brandon T. Adams. Brandon.
Hey, man. How you doing? I love that intro.
Man, it is so great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you having me on. It's really excited to share with your audience all I know. And I love your shirt, Grateful. That's, I think that is one thing that most people need to realize, being grateful for the things that we have, and then we'll get more of the things we don't have.
Wow, such a powerful point right off the bat. That's one of the things that I love about you and consuming your content, and I've got to share this with you, that researching you and getting to know you has just been a great experience, and you've helped me out in a number of ways that you're not even aware of. So we're going to be talking more about that. So I'm really excited to dive right in. So let's get right to it. So if you could, Brandon, why don't we start? You've had such an interesting background, but why don't we start with a thumbnail sketch of your backstory and kind of share some of the highlights of the journey that led you to the work that you're doing today?
Yes, the background, I grew up in the ice business. You mentioned ice. I grew up in Iowa. I sold packaged ice to my father. We were a wholesale distributor. So think of like bags of ice that you would deliver to bars, convenience stores, people would use in their drink. So that was like my beginning. I always thought to sell ice for the rest of my life. And my dad always said, use your head, not your back. And that's where I kind of thought differently in things. So did that, went to college. Because I did want to, at least at that time in my mindset, was like get a degree and then take over the business and go from there. And so I went to college. My first semester, I about dropped out. I got a 1.68 GPA. I just basically didn't do anything that entailed what you need to do in college besides drink and do bad things. And so where my life changes, I read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The book made me realize that anything's possible. Put your mind to something if you surround yourself with the right people. And so read that book, and then I ended up graduating college, going back, getting the family ice business, where I eventually bought the business from my dad and since sold it. But I realized I could do whatever I wanted in life. And so one invention I had was a product called Arctic Stick to cool and flavor drinks. So I invented that product and took it to market, and that came from being in the ice business. And so got a couple patents, trademarks, never really made a lot of money with the invention. But that led me to crowdfunding. So it led me to raising money for other people. So in the last leg of funding of my invention, I turned to Kickstarter.com, did a crowdfunding campaign, saw how hard it was to raise money. And I said, okay, I want to help other people raise money for their ideas. So I spent the whole next year building my brand around crowdfunding. I wrote a book on it, started podcasting, and then I started working with people and helping them raise money. Where I got my, I guess, so-called lucky break was I got to work with John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneurs on Fire to launch his book, The Freedom Journal, that we went on to do close to $500,000 in a month. We made the 5th largest crowdfunding campaign in history.
Hmm.
So for doing that, that's how I got to work with all these influential people. But the key component of fundraising was a video. So creating a video that empowered people or got them to understand the product and really get them to, well, take money out of their pocket and give it to us on the campaign. And so with the right video and the right marketing plan, you can raise a lot of money. You can pre-sell a lot of your product. You can sell whatever it is you're selling. You can emotionally get people to do something. And so I became obsessed with video, more so than crowdfunding. And so where I had another opportunity is in 2016, a guy said, if you help me crowdfund, I have a pilot running a TV show. If you help me crowdfund this, I'll make you my co-host. I ended up saying yes. We raised money for the show. We produced a show called Ambitious Adventures, traveled the country, interviewed entrepreneurs, and so ended up released on Amazon Prime. We had on Facebook Watch, right when Facebook Watch had just become a thing. We had to deal with the Entrepreneur Network, so they were pushing out to their audience. It's pretty cool. And so that's how I got into the TV space. And then I went on to do another show called Live to Grind, and then I went and did the show with my wife called Success in Your City. So that's the show where we ended up winning Emmy Awards. But that's how I got into video, and I realized the power of what video can do, not only in fundraising or obviously building a brand, but the people's lives you can impact through the right video. How you can get them emotionally connected to something and get them to do something with it for the better good. And so once I saw that, I went all in. Not only we have our TV shows, but I'm using a phone to create daily video content to share my message with the world and help other people. And on a business standpoint, it's the quickest way to grow your business substantially. Generating revenue, whether you're in a speaking business, you're a public speaker, you're a coach, you're a consultant, you're an advisor, you're a marketing expert, you're a small business owner, whatever it is you do, video marketing can help you grow that and help you grow exponentially. So that's my story, from Iceman in Iowa to invention to crowdfunding to TV show host. And here I am today talking with you, Jay.
Love it. Well, you certainly have shared a tremendous amount there in that story. So there's a few things that I want to unpack, and we're going to go into some more detail on some of these areas as the conversation continues. But one thing I definitely want to go back to is that ice business. And I want to go back, if we can, to some of the early years and what it was like working with your dad, and what I'd like you to hone in on, if you would. What were some of the most profound lessons that you learned from your dad? I mean, you shared some lessons. You shared a comment that your dad made about using your head as opposed to using your back. But watching him, learning from him, kind of lighting up that entrepreneurial spirit, what were some of those profound lessons at that time?
Really good question. And not many people ask me that. And what I took away that's helped me in what I do today is, for one, customer relationships. I mean, we were working with a lot of mom and pop stores, people that some of the customers we had up until I sold the business. So they know my dad for 30 years. And so I got to see my dad build a relationship with these people and how to add value to them. The one thing he taught me is, and this is why we were successful in the ice business, is he said, he would even tell the potential customers, he'll say, we may charge more than everybody else for our product, but we will provide you the best customer service, and we will make sure you're never out of product, even on the holidays in the summer. And so, because if they're out of product, then they lose out on potential sales. So on the 4th of July, that's the busiest time of the year. So in that 10-day span of that holiday, we would sell more ice than, any time. And so what I learned is work ethic, also making sure to provide value. I was in the ice truck sometimes at 10 p.m. at night to make sure they wouldn't run out of ice. My goal was to never have them out of ice. And so work ethic, the grind in it, providing customer service, providing value, and learning from my father about this at a young age. And also, I saw the obstacles, like people that weren't so good to work with, the obstacles we had in business when things broke down. I don't think enough people, we live in a world now, everything's online, most things. And so I'm very grateful from learning, being in a brick and mortar business that had trucks, employees, all these things, the insurance, all this stuff. And then working with all these other mom and pop stores, bars, convenience stores, restaurants, I actually got to see a lot of entrepreneurs at a young age, some that made it, some that didn't. Like we'd go into places and we could almost tell based off the character of the entrepreneur business owner, they probably wouldn't make it more than 12 months. Sad to say, but
yeah,
we got to see all these different businesses, and the ones that made it, we got to, when I would talk with the customers after we delivered the ice, we'd have a conversation. I get to learn about their business. And so I was like learning about all these different hundreds of businesses when I was a teenager, when even a kid. And so like I learned so much about business and customer relationships at a young age that I can apply now in some of the companies I work with. And we're talking like various substantial companies, 100 million to $1 billion revenue. And so I understand the basics in business that can apply in the level I do today. And then again, like I said, I learned to use my communication skills and my knowledge to make money versus using my back, because that's a very strenuous business, the ice business. I mean, it's workout, and I will do work all day, but it's just not something I want to do for the rest of my life. And I'm very grateful I'm no longer in the business.
Yeah, I mean, what an incredible experience to have at such an impressionable age, and to be able to have the kinds of conversations that you were having with other people that were around you, and being able to see businesses that weren't successful or that weren't making forward progress, and trying to distill and understand why, right? So we're doing the opposite, right?
Yeah.
And that's really incredible. I kind of look back on my own youth, and one of the things that I was always fascinated by was the business of business. Even from the time that I was a little kid, looking around, my father was in real estate, and just kind of driving around with him and trying to look at these different businesses and ask better questions as to, you know, what's that business doing, right? What are they doing to be successful? You know, why didn't that business make it, right? Always inquisitive and always trying to uncover why. So that's really interesting. So,
yeah.
and you talked about the power of communication, right? And that's an area that you're incredibly strong, and you communicate your story, you communicate your message very well. You're prolific all over social media. It wasn't always that way. So as a child, you had something that you had to overcome. You had an obstacle that you had to work on to become a better communicator. Can you share a bit about that? And if you would, as you're sharing that, kind of talk through what the process was for you to break through and move past that and use that as a strength today.
Yeah, so I was born with a speech impediment. So I was born with a lisp. So like my S's and my like THs and words didn't come out how most people would talk. So like people take things for granted, they can communicate flawlessly. When I grew up, like I couldn't say my S's. So what would happen is you could see my tongue come out, but I couldn't say the words right. It's humiliating, especially as a kid, 8, 9, 10-year-old, getting made fun of and people like saying things to you. These people can be vicious, you know, everybody's probably been bullied in some way or another. And so that was my setback, and it frustrated me. I hated it. I remember going home and crying to my parents about it, and they had put me through speech class, but it never really was a thing that like got me through my impediment. So what I did is, and I was a kid doing this, and this is like stuff that I learned in Think and You're Rich, but I hadn't read the book yet. It was still another decade before I was going to read the book. And the things were like persistence. And so I would sit in front of the mirror and I would do S's, and I would say I was successful, great at speaking. I would say every S word there was, because I used to try to avoid those words because I can't say it right. Try to do a sentence and communicate without saying any word with the S in it. And so I started speaking in front of this mirror and watching, making sure my tongue was behind my teeth. And people who have a speech impediment, you'll know what this is. And I've actually helped people. Like I've had people that come to my events and I told them, here's some tips. Like I gave this girl one time tips, and she emailed me 3 weeks later and said her impediment was going away. And so that's pretty cool. But what happened is I actually was telling myself I was a great speaker. So I would actually be in school and we'd be at recess, and people like, do you have a lisp? Do you have a speech impediment? I would look at them and I'd say, no, what are you talking about? And so like, I would like convince myself that I didn't have an impediment. And so instead of always being in my mind thinking, worrying about saying that word, S word, or like worrying if somebody would point it out, I just started telling myself, and this is a powerful thing with mindset. I was telling myself, I don't have an impediment and I'm a great speaker. I started to actually eventually believe that. And then by the time I was like at 13 or 14, I think I really lost my impediment. And then once I was 16, 17, I was doing more like public speaking. I don't know if I've completely lost it, but I was, people didn't like point it out. And then, I mean, I turned my weakness into my strength. And so what I did is I feared public speaking. It scared the shit out of me. But what I did is I put myself in a position to always do things that scared me. So like, for example, always volunteering to be in front of the class to say something. I remember volunteering at this event to talk, get the microphone. And then in college, like I would always do things that put me in front of a group of people speaking. Even like, it's funny, speech comp class. Like I did speeches, but I think I might've got a C or a D in speech comp. I remember I had to do an extra credit class, and I was doing all this extra credit to actually pass the speech comp class. And it's funny because it's like, I get paid 5 figures to give a 60-minute keynote now. And before I was failing speech class.
Love it.
But so I guess the lesson there for anybody is, if you want to become a great speaker, anybody can, master your communication, put yourself in positions where, I mean, every speaker now is probably one time a sucky speaker. So put yourself where you're always speaking. I'd practice in front of the mirror, camera, all this stuff. And I would constantly perfect my craft. And I would say the best public speakers are the ones that know how to tell a really good story. If you can tell really good stories that they can hear you, but they can see it in their mind, they can visualize it.
Right.
That's when you make an impact. And so that's one thing I've learned to do, is always be telling stories and communicating in a way that people can relate to something that gets my point across. And I use that a lot in my coaching and the business works, what I do. And also obviously in film, like the best stories on camera are the ones that impact people, because when you see a video, you can not only hear it, but also you could see somebody's eyes, the facial expressions of their face or hand gestures, everything. There's so much more that comes from it that communication does to a person through video. And that's why I love video so much.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you shared an incredibly valuable lesson through telling us that story about taking a weakness and turning that into a strength, right? So your superpower, as I hear it at that time, was the ability to visualize and the ability to use your mindset very powerfully to reframe the story, right? And so every opportunity you had to be able to either use that strength of yours, right, speaking and convincing yourself and telling others that you're a professional speaker, right? There's no limits to what you can do when you're dedicated enough, when you're persistent enough, and you are all in, and you clearly demonstrated that. So thank you. I appreciate you sharing the story the way that you did. That's awesome.
Thank you for asking. I don't think I've ever went in depth in terms of that topic before. I mean, obviously I've had that, but it makes me think through it. Like it is, and that's the whole point of everything, is looking at it. Anything really is possible if you can commit to something, and really, if you want to achieve something, either you're going to figure a way to do it, and it's going to be hard, but you're either going to figure a way, or you're going to make an excuse. And so for me, and at that age, I knew I wanted to be great at sales. I didn't know what it was going to be in, but I knew if I wanted to be a great salesman, I had to be a great communicator. And so I had to master my communication.
Yeah, there you go. So you've referenced this more than once already, and that is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And clearly that book had a substantial impact on you. Share what that, there you go, man. Share what that impact was. When did that book enter your life? And what was one of the first things that you did once you started reading it?
Yeah, so I was 20, I think I was 20 years old. So about a decade ago. I'm 30. I'll be 31 here in 21 days. But I went so that speech comp class, I had to get extra credit. One of the extra credit things was to go to a presentation by someone. And I saw this presentation, Cactus Jack Behringer was his name. He was a famous inventor. So I showed up, I sat in the front row, and I got to talk with this guy. We hit it off. He gave a talk, and he said, Think and You're Rich, a book that'll change your life. And so he eventually became my mentor and still a good friend today. And he's done a lot of cool things. And so I read the book. I was sitting in college, and like I'm sitting in a dorm room or wherever it was. And I was like, I saw what like Thomas Edison, Andrew Carnegie, all these people did. Like Thomas Edison, I think he didn't have beyond elementary to like education. And Andrew Carnegie or all these people, like they had all these different things that most people are like, oh, they're never going to make it. But they achieved so much wealth and success. And so this book shares 13 principles that shared how they achieved success. And just so you know, it's not just about money. Like it's Think and Grow Rich, but just know that it's about achieving your chief definite aim in life, whatever that may be, and using these principles. So as reading the book, the big takeaway I had is one, obviously the visualization and really knowing what you want. So I knew if I had to first figure out what I wanted, but then two, if I surrounded myself with the right people, like they call them mastermind or experts, I didn't have to be the smartest person. I just needed to know how to bring the right people together and coordinate them towards a common goal. And so that was my takeaway. And once I did that, so once I read that book, I mean, I've read it a dozen times since. Every time you read it, there's something else you get from it. I went and hired the guy that told me to read the book. I remember throwing down 10 grand at 21 years old to get him as a coach, cash. And I didn't have that. I found a way to get it. And so I had him be my coach and mentor. And then I started building up my profile of people I worked with, and then different examples. So like in this book, it talks about how Edward C. Barnes found his way into business with Thomas Edison. And so how he did that was he showed up one day and said, I'm going to go into business with you. And he saw the conviction in his eyes that he really believed that. And he said, I don't really have a job for you, but you can sweep the floors. So he swept the floors, and eventually opportunity came for him. He kept showing up for him to sell one of Thomas Edison's inventions. And so he ended up, well, that's where it's like invented by Edison and installed by Barnes. Like that's where that came from. And so he ended up making millions of dollars with Thomas Edison, and he went into business with him. So that story, I've taken that concept in other areas of my life. So starting out, like one of the first things that kind of got me out into where people kind of knew who I was is I was podcasting. I started podcasting in 2015, but I had John Lee Dumas on my podcast show. And at the end of every show, I would say, hey, here's what I do. How can I help you? And I said, hey, I'm a crowdfunding expert. How can I help you? Let alone like I had only done a couple campaigns. I was still getting my brand out there and name. And he said, I'm thinking about doing this thing called the Freedom Journal, a book. And he just had like I don't even think he had a copy then. And so as soon as we got off that call, I never even asked him. I went and created an entire landing page, and I spent like a day on this. I sent him a login. I said, hey, I can help you do this. Let's do this campaign. Don't have to pay me. I'm going to take this on. I just want a testimonial, and we can do this. So I spent 6 months in that campaign, no fee. And we launched it January 4th of 2016. And so within 33 hours, we had done $100,000 in revenue. In 33 days, we did $453,000 in revenue. It became the 5th largest crowdfunding campaign in history for a book. Went on the book, did multiple millions of dollars. And so that was, for one, what came from that. Okay, people were like, oh, you did it for free. But here's what happened. That helped start my career. So a couple things. One, I got to go on his show. I've been on his show 4 times now, which it's hard to get on a show. And I think there's even a fee now because he has such a big audience. I've been on this show 4 times. I think the only other person that's been on it 4 times, maybe Tony Robbins. And going on the show like one time from just listeners, I got $50,000 worth of clients. It's a good testimonial for JLD, but true. And so that's more than I would have charged him in the campaign. But also that campaign made it where everybody else wanted to work with me, and I named my price. That ultimately was a campaign that led to me working with Kevin Harrington, we did a book campaign called Put a Shark in Your Tank. And so we launched it. And so that started my career. And so I share that story is because I understood the power of adding value. And if you add value to the right individuals, they can open up their Rolodex and get you much farther in the line of success than anybody else could doing it on their own. And you just got to be willing to give time and effort and sometimes expect nothing in return. And then once you do that, then you're going to have people that are going to come to you left and right. And you can choose who you want to work with.
Wow. I mean, what a fantastic story about taking action and about creating massive value without the expectation necessarily of something in return, right? So
Yeah.
you put out great work and built some amazing connections that way, and look at what's come back to you in spades. And it reminds me a bit, because Think and Grow Rich is one of those books that I've gifted numerous times. It's been very impactful in my life as well. But it's interesting. It's Think and Grow Rich came way before The Secret did, and one of the critical components about it, which you just amplified, is about taking action. So sometimes when people hear the title of Think and Grow Rich, they make the assumption that, oh, all I have to do is sit in my room and just ruminate on something. I just have to think about, making $10 million, and $10 million is going to magically come my way. Well, no, there's a lot of work involved, right? There's the action step that you have to take. So I'm glad that you accentuated that point.
Yeah, not everybody does. I mean, The Secret, great film, but it really showed like the visualization and thinking, and it's like, okay, you got to actually do the work. Like you got to take the action, and that's one thing I'm really good at, is thinking it, visualizing it, but then doing the work necessary, knowing what actual the work you got to put in. And not enough people take action. Like I was sitting with J.B. Hill, Napoleon Hill's grandson. We're in Wise, Virginia, where Napoleon, I think he's born there, and that's where the foundation is. And because I was a part of the team that produced the movie on the book, and so we were sitting down, and he always says that people, they come to him and it's like, what's the secret of the book? Like, I can't figure it out. I've read it. And he says, you got to go do something. You can't just read it. Like, you got to go do something, go do stuff. And that's how you're going to achieve your success and how you're going to make money. Not enough people understand it. You got to go do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. So I'm glad you hit on that, because not only did you read the book, right, because it was referred to you by a mentor, which, by the way, love that name, Cactus Jack. I mean, if you've got a name like that, you better be putting out some. That's incredible. So, but not only did you read the book, and not only did it have a massive impact on you, but then you get involved in creating the movie based on the book, Think and Grow Rich, The Legacy. What was that experience like for you, knowing that book touched you the way that it did?
I mean, it was like a full circle that showed me what is possible if you apply the principles of the book. It was insane. Like I remember telling myself, I was like, eventually I'm going to be in the book one day, and they do updated versions or the testimony on the back. And it was in June of 2016. I was doing a Facebook Live. I was like preaching Think and Grow Rich principles, and there were only like 9 people on the live, but one of those viewers was a guy that had been watching me, and he said, hey, I'd like to have a call with you. We did a call, and he was the producer of a movie that was going to be created called Think and Grow Rich, Legacy, based on Think and Grow Rich. So theatrical scenes they'd reenact with like Thomas Edison, Edward C. Barnes, and all these other people, Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, and then it would be interviews from people that have applied the principles in their life and have found success. And he said, we're about 30% in, but we're looking to raise more money, and we'd like to use you to help us raise money for the crowdfunding. And so I was all in. Like, I took on the project. I added value. We did a campaign for them. It was on Indiegogo. We raised, I think, $370,000 in a couple months. So at that time, it was the largest crowdfunding campaign history for a docudrama. And so that led to like other investors, and it helped us raise half the funding. So not only did it help them raise a lot of money, but then I came in and I flew out and I would be on set. So like, you watch the movie, I was on set for some of those interviews. I was there with the people, and then I was interviewed. So at that time, I'm 30 now. I was 26, I think. So I'm the youngest guy in the movie, and I'm the associate producer of the movie, and I was going to help raise the money. So I got to be a part of something. I think I branded it so much that most people still think I'm the main guy for it. But I was a part of that movie because I, again, followed the principles and I added value. I used my specialized knowledge, which is crowdfunding, and I took action. And I'll say that probably the greatest experience that come from that, I mean, all the being in the movie, all that was great for business. I think the biggest thing that I really value the most is the relationship I gained with James Whitaker. Because James and I met through that project, because James wrote the book. I got it here somewhere. Right here it is. Oh, there we go. Think You're Rich Legacy. So I got in the book, he interviewed me, and we just became really good friends. He was officially for my wedding. Like I was just with him 2 weeks ago in LA. And so I think that relationship is probably one of the most things I value from what came from that. And it's cool. I mean, it's in 3 languages now. The movie's in Spanish, Czech Republic, and English. It's been seen a lot of people. People send me screenshots of seeing me on the movie, and that opened a lot of doors for me. But it's really cool to see something I read when I was 20. When I was 26, I got a part of the project, and then I was in the movie. So like, again, this is just the power of following these principles. And it's anything is possible. I'm saying it out loud. Like, I mean, I'm from Iowa. I'm from a town of 700 people. I didn't know what creating movies or any of that was. That was not a part of my even thinking. I thought I was going to sell frozen water for the rest of my life. But it's crazy what could happen when you go out of your comfort zone and you read different books and you get exposed to different things, and then you start pursuing different things and just sticking with it.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it really is amazing when you put the principles into practice. And I'm just going to show this again. And for those that are watching or listening, I would highly, highly encourage you to go out and buy this book. It is excellent. Buy the original book, right? And then also go out and buy this companion book, which has been updated with some great stories. And as Brandon said, Brandon's actually in this book. There's a chapter about him, and I believe it's under persistence. And that makes perfect sense in my world. So, I'm so glad that you shared that. So, and we've touched on this a bit, but I just want to emphasize something here, and I'd like you to share some lessons learned, and that's about how you frame failure. Because look, at the end of the day, we all deal with it, right? It doesn't matter what, the life that we're living, the business that we're in, we're always going to experience challenges, and we're always going to experience things that don't turn out exactly the way that we had planned. So what have you learned about how you frame failure, and can you share what you've learned about turning failures into success?
Yeah, so as you go through as an entrepreneur, you're gonna have a lot of obstacles or temporary defeats, or we call temporary failures. But I don't ever see it as a failure unless you accept it as that. So I look back in my life, every time something didn't go the way it was supposed to go, in hindsight, it was success in disguise. It actually led me to different things. So I'll give you a couple examples. Like in 2015, I moved to 14. I moved to Des Moines, Iowa with my wife today. She was my girlfriend then, to start a company called Adams Product Innovation to help ideas get to market. And we were going to get investors, and we had this whole plan set up and everything. And we were going to pull the trigger on it. We got office picked out, everything. And so we moved to Des Moines, and then I realized my gut feeling said that it was going to be wrong timing for me to pursue this. There was so many things about it that I felt like I wasn't ready for that specific thing. And I just realized, and then this is hard because I always say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. But that time I realized I had to make a pivot. So I turned down doing that company and turned down taking investment or any of that. And so that led to like, oh shit, we just moved to the city. We're not going to do this company. We're not making money. And so like I hit rock bottom, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And I just asked my girlfriend, who was in Minnesota, to leave her job and go do this. So I promised her pay and everything. So I felt like I was a failure. And so what happened is we had to figure out what we were going to do. So I had this invention I hadn't quite taken to market. I thought, okay, I'm going to raise money for it. And I'm like, oh, this thing called crowdfunding. I saw Kickstarter. So that failure, for one, led me to getting into crowdfunding, which led me into TV. So if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have got to that where I am today. And two, for my wife, that led her to going to a local gym and working at the front desk and eventually becoming a personal trainer, which she does today. So those two successes came from a temporary defeat. And so I have countless stories of where this happened, but there was a lesson learned that I utilized that for storytelling, but also for finding ways to not have that happen again and to be more prepared for when I took on other obstacles. So now anytime something happens, I ask myself, what can I learn from this? How can I not have something like this happen again? And how can I use this situation to profit from it? And so that's what I've done. And if you have that mindset, and also always tell yourself everything happens for a reason. There's a reason it's happening. I don't know what it is. God's saying something, like it's happening for a reason. So that when you look at things that way, you don't get so caught up in the obstacle and the temporary defeat. And you start looking at, okay, what can you learn from it? That changed everything for me.
Wow. That's an incredible way of looking at things, and what a powerful mindset. And I love the fact that not only did you use intuition, right? Because there was something that told you, there was a red flag, there was something that you were feeling that said, this is not the right opportunity, the right place, for whatever that reason is. And it also sounds like you got some amazing perspective, right? So you widened the lens, and we're looking at things through a very different set of optics. So those are some great questions to ask yourself, and I think that those would be applicable for any of us that are watching or listening to this, because again, it goes back to we all experience it, right, at different phases in life. So let's learn from it. Let's use those temporary setbacks as feedback to what didn't work, and let's readjust, adapt, and focus on the opportunities, focus on solutions. So excellent.
Where your energy and focus goes is where things flow. Like if you focus on the negative and that's not going to help you. Focus on the positive or the possibilities instead of the negative areas. And I think too many people dwell on the past, and they dwell on the negative side of something. I always find I get fallen shit and literally find the best part about falling in shit. You know what I mean? Like, what's the best thing I can find out of this situation? That's how you got to look at things.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So you and your now wife, Samantha, star in the show Success in Your City, which is available on Amazon Prime. And you wrote the book, The Road to Success, How to Achieve Success in Business, Life, and Love. Is the outcome of both of those projects what you had planned?
You know, yes and no. I always knew, like when we went after it, I knew I was going to follow through, even though that was tough at times. But I didn't know the direction quite it was going to go. It completely changed us as people and perspective on success and life and money and all that. Mm-hmm. It was way harder than I thought it was going to be, way harder. But it taught me how to just always adapt and pivot and make changes. But now that it's actually coming out, like the book's out, our show, we got 2 episodes left, 3 are out on Amazon Prime. It is so cool to see something that we just conceived an idea while sitting on the beach, and then like it became a reality. It became something that just like beyond what we can think. There was a lot of time and effort and sacrifice, but I'm seeing the seeds I planted, that we planted for that show and the book and the vision. We're now harvesting the crops from what that's bringing, and we're experiencing our idea that's coming to life and impacting people. I mean, I'm going on different shows. I'm talking to people that read the book or they watch a show and impact them in a certain way. That's really cool. I mean, as a TV producer and an author, that's what you want. Like, you write a book because you want it to impact people. You want it to help them. You create a show, you want people to watch it, for one. Then after they watch it, like, you want it to impact them in a certain way. And so hearing the stories of people, of how it's particularly impacting them, and then hearing their stories of their own story and why it connects with them so well, it's powerful. That it's so cool. Like I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and they told me their experience, and more and more people are coming out and sharing their like and love for this brand and show and book, and it's pretty cool. No money can pay for that feeling.
What an experience. And how did it change your relationship with Samantha?
It solidified it. We went on to travel the country and film this TV series. By the way, no sponsors starting out. I mean, I found sponsors, but half of the funding was through my own money. And this wasn't no like cheap budget show. This is like a show that's you see on Amazon or Netflix or TV. Like it's a high-end show. Ain't no YouTube channel show. And so it's expensive. And so we're going on this journey. Every city we're like, and by the way, I'm trying to run a business. And then we decided that year to get married the same year we're doing the show. So we're traveling the country, filming a show. We're the producers, we're the hosts, we're the casting people, we're funding it. And then we're traveling in a different city. Someplace we don't know anybody. So we got to learn, we got to find a place to live. And then also plan our wedding that year. But also like we're going through obstacles in our business. And then like all this kind of changes by the third episode, the David France story that just released. Like we basically went on to sell our home. Like then from that episode and filming in Boston, we went home, we sold our house. We sold 99% of our things. We put what we had left in a storage unit, and then we got in our vehicle and drove to Denver, not looking back, knowing we had no home. I mean, we could have lived with our parents, but, and then that was a little scary. I was like, oh shit, what did we just do? There's no turning back now. So we went to Denver, filmed our next episode, and then we went to Nashville. And we went and did our finale, and we did our wedding, which in the finale of our show, you'll see our wedding. And so that was the experience. I mean, so in a matter of, it was 14 months. We traveled the country, filmed season 1 of the show. We sold 2 businesses, sold our house, sold 99% of our things. We got married, planned that wedding, got married. And then also, by the way, we ended up winning Emmys for the show. So like this all happened. Like, and one more thing, like while doing all this too, we had a moment where we almost went bankrupt. Like we had all these things happen. What most people experience in their lifetime, we experienced in 14 months. And so talk about how that brings people together. Like,
yes. What
doesn't kill you make you stronger? Like now, any obstacle is nothing. It's child play for us because like, that ain't nothing.
That is amazing. I mean, talk about experiences in a compressed amount of time and having grit and fortitude and just a drive to keep going forward. At any point along the way, did either of you look at one another and say, I don't think we should be doing this?
Oh yeah. We almost like broke up. Like the wedding was called off for a little bit. My wife wanted to end, and I was like, part of me is like, okay, are we going to be done here? Because we were such at a brick wall that I'm like, I don't know how we're going to pull this off. And so we originally set out for 12 cities and 12 episode season. We ended up getting 6 cities, a 5 episode show, which is still good. And so like I set this high expectation, shoot for the stars, land on the moon. Yeah, we almost didn't finish. It was very difficult. And so I'm glad we pushed through, but there were so many obstacles. We're looking at each other and we're like, anybody gonna watch this show? Like, does anyone even care? And so I'm glad we went through it because people do care. And it just turned out very well.
You know, again, I'm going to talk about lessons learned, and you've shared some very, very important ones. And just listening to your passion around this and your ability to tell the story, right? The ups and downs and the challenges that you faced, and the ability to just stay focused on the outcome. We don't know exactly how we're going to get there, right? But we know we're going to get there, and the kind of conversations that you had to have, and the doubt, and all of that. You know, if you look at it, that's so much of that is the entrepreneurial journey, right? So, you know, we don't always know Exactly. Matter of fact, most of the time we don't know exactly what's going to happen. None of us have that crystal ball that gives us the exact answer, right? We have lots of hopes, we have lots of dreams, and we can plan for things to happen, but we also have to be adaptable. And if there's one thing about human beings, it's we are the ultimate adaptation machine, right? So if again we're focused on the outcome, we're looking at solutions, and we're creative and we're resourceful, we can do anything. And you're proving that day
100%.
in, day out.
I mean, I'm proving it, but also like one of the episodes of stories is David France. The guy was homeless for 5 months. He slept on the streets of Boston. And so he had no money. But he was committed to his dream. And so he found a way to make it work, and he created an orchestra from nothing. He got instruments donated. He got teachers to donate their time, and he created all this from literally nothing. And so that's being very resourceful. And so entrepreneurs is, some people think, oh, if I had more money or had this. No, if you can really figure out to work with what you have, you can actually achieve more than people that actually have money. It's because you're thinking outside the box. And so I think too many people limit themselves by thinking if they had this, they could do this. No, just use what you have and go with it.
Yeah, great point. So what are a few adjectives that you would use to describe yourself?
Let's see here. Persistent, challenging, motivating, drive, no bullshit. Really, I would say, and I don't know if these are all adjectives. I'm just, things that I just think of is like things that consist of action. Action is a great one. Like action and just belief, conviction of myself and what I can do. Those are the things that every entrepreneur needs in order to succeed. And some people just don't have it. I'm just going to put it. Some people just won't have what it takes to achieve certain things because they can't stomach it. Mm-hmm. And then some people, like, they will achieve somewhat of whatever success in their life. And some people are just insanely, they're kind of crazy. Let's just put it that way. They're kind of crazy. And that's where they build these massive things. There's going to be obstacles, and there's going to be side effects to that. Because don't think when one energy's on one thing, or you put time on one thing, there's going to be time on another that's going to be lacking. So it's like, it does take sacrifice. It does take work. It does take a vision, and it takes doing something every day. And it could be, again, you could go on vacation for 5 days, but every day, maybe there's an hour that you spend sending 5 emails. That could be 5 emails. It could be very substantial for your achieving your goals. So like, what is that one thing you could do every day? It doesn't have to take all day. You don't have to, old conceptions, you got to work nonstop. Well, I love what I do, so I'm working a lot, but like, I don't have to work nonstop. I just got to be smarter with what I do, and also be able to delegate people to do things when I'm not doing anything. So be smart in how you work. Don't use your head. It goes back to using your head, not your back, and be smart about it.
There you go. So I already know one book that has significantly impacted your life, but what are 1 to 2 other books that have affected your outlook on life, excluding Think and Grow Rich?
You know, I'm looking at books now. I'm going to give you a couple to look at. So I got my stage here. So here's one is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That's a really good one. Mm-hmm. This book is, I advise a lot of companies. I'm starting to invest in companies. If you're ever looking to become an angel investor advisor, I had a guy named Jason Calacanis speak at my event in Iowa once. It's called Angel, how he turned $100,000 into $100 million. Really good book. Like, this is a really good book. If you're ever thinking of becoming an investor or advising companies, I love this book. Another one is, if you ever want a mentor and you want to figure out how to get the right mentor, my mentor, Kevin Harrington, original Shark Tank, he just came up with this book, Mentor to Millions. And so that book is so good. I'm obviously biased, but I've read the book and I've listened to it. And I was like one of the first people to get it before it came out. And the book is powerful. And it really shows you how to get a mentor. And so those are ones coming to mind. I could talk books all day because I've read so many, but
I love it. We'll talk more about that offline. But since you brought this topic up, Why are mentors so important, and why have they been so important in your life?
Yeah, I mean, my mentors, coaches, or whoever you want to call it, like most of them are twice my age. They've seen more in business than I have seen in my 30 years. They've achieved things. I always said, find somebody who's already achieved what you want to achieve, and hire them, get them as a mentor, and figure out how they can help you. Like I called my mentor last night, and I called Kevin Harrington. I called him quick, and I said, hey, I needed some advice. This could literally be the difference between 6 and 7 figures and just this advice. And so I called him, and he gave me the insight because he's been doing this a lot longer than most people. And so that advice helped me. And so like we need people to go to, experts in certain areas to call on. And so that helps you achieve more in such a short period of time. But also when you're around these people, you think bigger. So like I do a lot of high level masterminds, and I bring in people and they pay money to be a part of something. Found out when people pay, they pay attention. Mm-hmm. But then the amount of synergy from the group is so powerful. Like they make money, but they learn and they think of things they couldn't possibly think on their own, because it's proven when 2 people are talking, 2 minds is better than 1, because 1 can think smart, but 2, between the collaboration, the minds can come up with something that 1 mind couldn't think on its own. So again, this is why you get a coach. This is why you get a mentor. This is why you join different groups. And that, again, going back to Thinking Rich, that's what I learned in the book, The Power of Your Mastermind. And so if you don't have a coach or mentor, you're not a part of a mastermind group or a coaching group or something, you are definitely losing out on your opportunity. And you think, oh, maybe I can't afford it. You can't afford not to.
Big point. Big point. You're so right on that. And another thing that I want to make sure that we're not missing here, and that is that you are a coach to others, right? You provide coaching to other leaders and businesses and so forth, and you yourself have coaches, right? So it's not as if we get to a certain point or a different stage and we stop learning, right? If you want to you're always learning. If you want to get better, you know what it takes, right? You want to surround yourself with others, and you're willing to make the investment, because that's exactly what it is. You are investing in yourself, and there is no better investment.
100%. I mean, I think coaching is very needed. I mean, look at fighters, like look at Mike Tyson or Mayweather, or think of the swimmers out there, the gold medalists. Like they all have a coach, somebody pushing them. We only do in the gym, like we do what we're going to do, but when you have somebody else telling you what to do or giving you guidance and seeing things you can't see, like you're going to do more. It's just proven. It's just common sense. So definitely find somebody.
Yeah, love it. So where do you look for inspiration today?
That's a good question. Where do I look for inspiration? I like seeing young entrepreneurs, people doing big things. I like seeing when other people succeed, and that inspires me. When I'm around big thinkers, it inspires me to think bigger. I'm inspired by people that just go after something, and because I've been there too. I mean, I still go after things, but like when I was just starting out with ideas, like I love seeing that motivation in other people and looking in their eyes and seeing their desire. I love that. That inspires me. That inspires me to bring back the kid in myself. I mean, I'm still a kid, but definitely I'm not in my 20s anymore.
Perfect. What are you most proud of?
I will say my marriage. I have a very loving wife that has been great. I don't think anybody could deal with me besides her. I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for my friends and my relationship and the abilities I have in my life.
Beautiful. What would you like your legacy to be?
I want people to remember me as somebody that helped other people, and when they saw something from me, whether they watched my shows, they learned from me, that it made them think bigger and to do things they normally wouldn't do on their own. I push them to become the best selves and best version of themselves.
Perfect. So, Brandon, before I ask my final question, where can we connect with you and consume your amazing content?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on social media at Brandon T. Adams everywhere. You can go to my website, brandonTadams.com, and I'd love for you all to go and watch our show. It's on Amazon Prime, Success in Your City. It's really a great show. You go binge watch it. I'm very proud of it.
Outstanding. Well, we will certainly link to each of those in the show notes. You can count on that. So here is my final question to you. So on a scale of 0 to 100, with 100 being fully realized potential, where is Brandon T. Adams today?
Anybody that says 100%, they're full of shit. Um, I, man, I know there's a study on this, and most people, entrepreneurs like myself, they put themselves at a lower scale. I would say I'm at between 80 and 90. I know I can do better. I know there's hacks. There's so much more I can do. Like when I see people that do things at such a high level, I'll give myself a 87.
I like it. 87. So with that said, what obstacles are standing in the way of you being the best version of you?
Figuring out how to collapse time in a way that I can be everywhere, but not be everywhere. So it really comes down to me building more titans like me that can duplicate myself. And I'm doing that now. So it's being able to create more systems in place where I can just keep doing what I want to do, is going on shows like this, creating shows, and only doing calls that really I can do to make the most impact. And this is, again, a reason why I do very little coaching now. It's people have to apply to work for me, because if I work with somebody, I want to find a win-win in the whole coaching relationship. So yeah, it's utilizing my time to the best abilities and making the most of it and making sure every minute counts.
Outstanding. Great answer. And I appreciate that. And Brandon, thank you so very much for being here today. Again, as the shirt says, I'm truly grateful. I appreciate you sharing your insights, sharing your wisdom with everyone, being very candid and transparent, and being an excellent communicator and storyteller. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And for you, thank you for watching and listening. And I'd love to hear your takeaways and feedback on this episode. So please take a moment to subscribe and leave a comment. And to enjoy more episodes and to learn how J. Shear Business Consulting can build a solid foundation for your service-based business, visit jshearbusinessconsulting.com. And until next time, keep learning and growing, and we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care.